Hello again. A number of people who watched my review recently of the ZWO ASI 2600mm Pro camera have asked about the steps that I took to produce this image at the end of that video, which is a Hubble palette narrowband image of the Elephant's Trunk Nebula. So this is a quick video showing you the steps I used in Photoshop and Lightroom to produce that image. So we'll start in Photoshop by opening three stacked images from Deep Sky Stacker: a sulfur, an oxygen and a hydrogen. I'm just going to zoom each of these to full size. Now we'll go to the first image and change the image mode to 16 bits per channel, and I use equalize histogram as the option to give us a good start in terms of stretching. And then I use image adjustment curves and image adjustment levels alternately, being very careful not to lift the black level too much each time. Do a bit of a stretch and then lift the black level a little, and then do another stretch and then lift the black level a little. So when the histogram's quite wide and to the left, I'll just do a simple curve stretch. But sometimes when the histogram is narrow and there's quite a gap to the left hand side of it, I'll do an S-shaped curve stretch. So you see here, by using 2 points we can put the steepest part of the curve on the biggest part of the histogram to give us a good stretch. So now I'll do that to the next image. Same game again. Start by changing the mode to 16 bits per channel, equalize histogram. We'll start with a level adjustment, lifting the black level slightly. A curves adjustment. Now here we've got a big gap to the left, so I'll drop it down to the left and up to the right of the bulk of the histogram. Really stretch the important part of the dynamic range of the signal. So again, S-shaped stretch there. You're starting to see the detail coming out. In fact, this data, it's only 12 3-minute shots on each channel here, so there's only 36 minutes of data. And because the signal is so much fainter in oxygen and sulfur on the Elephant's Trunk Nebula, you really need probably more exposure time on those two channels than you need on the hydrogen alpha, where the signal's very strong. But just for the purposes of demonstrating today, this is fine. So we're really seeing the detail there now, which is nice. There's the hydrogen and there's the oxygen. Maybe one more quick stretch there and a final levels adjust. Okay, and now to do the same again for the sulfur. Now what I'm looking to achieve here is that the intensity and the amount of stretching on each of the images is roughly the same on all three channels. If you've got a really weak looking image on one channel and a really well stretched, nice contrast image on another channel, they don't combine well. So you really want to try and get a decent contribution, if you like, to the red, green and blue when we actually combine these in the colour channels in a minute. So you'll often see me hopping backwards and forwards between the others and this one, just to compare them and make sure that I'm content that they're making a roughly equivalent contribution to one another. Normally I would take a lot longer, of course, over this. I'm just doing it quickly for demonstration purposes today. So we're getting close to this one being done now. And it's looking pretty good now. So the hydrogen, the oxygen and the sulfur. Okay, so now I'm going to create a new image. This needs to be the same size as your stacked images, but it needs to be an RGB color image. and we'll go into the channels and just select the red, and then we'll select the sulfur image, Control A, Control C, so Control A selects all, Control C copies, and paste with Control V into the red. Select the green, choose the hydrogen, Control A, Control C, back to our composite image, Control V, and select the blue, and now our oxygen, Control A, Control C into the blue, and Control V. Now we can enable all of those channels and we get our first colour merge with all three. So I'm going to go back to the layers, meaning I'm just going to rename that layer from background into to call it SHO. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is create a stamp layer by holding down Control and Alt and Shift keys, and then pressing N and then pressing E, and then release the Control, Alt and Shift keys. That creates a stamp layer, so if you like, a single layer over the top that hides everything below it, which is a single image in colour of what we have. So now I'm going to use Image Adjustment Selective Colour, and we'll start by selecting the greens, and we'll drop the cyan down, right down to -100, and we'll drop the magenta to somewhere around -25. Now you can play with this yourselves and choose exactly how much you want to suppress the magenta here, but as a guide, somewhere around -25. Now we select the yellows, and again we'll drop the cyan down to -100, and this time we lift the magentas up to around about +25. Again, you can pick and choose depending on the effect that you want. And now we choose the cyan, and we'll drop the yellow down to -100, and then drop the magenta, so lift those blues Okay, I'm happy with that, so click OK. So already we're seeing some nice differentiation in the colours. I'm now going to add a new adjustment layer, which is a saturation, hue and saturation layer, and I'm going to select the magentas only and drop the saturation right down to the bottom to kill off any magenta that you're seeing around the stars. Now, that's a pretty good start. I'm not going to do any star removal and replacement today, so the stars are pretty saturated here, looking very white. That's a whole different game again, maybe subject for another tutorial. So now I'm going to do a file export as, and I'm going to export my image as a PNG format image. Let's choose a folder and give it a name. Okay, so that's now exporting as a PNG image. So what we're going to do next is import that PNG image into Lightroom for the finishing touches to the image. So here we are in Lightroom, and the first thing I'm going to do is adjust the clarity. So lift the clarity. Again, this is very much to taste. It really makes the nebula pop. So lift the clarity, it works very well. And now I've zoomed right in so I can see the noise in the image, and I'm adjusting the noise and the detail to get that balance. Too much noise suppression and too little detail, and you really lose a lot of detail, and too little noise suppression and it's too soft, or sorry, too noisy. So yeah, too little noise suppression, not good either. So just get a nice balance there, and I often will reduce the color noise as well, because colours don't tend to change very rapidly within an image over a short number of pixels. So now I've gone to the saturation tab and start to adjust the saturation of individual colours. And you could really, this is very much down to personal taste and what you're trying to achieve in your image. but have a go at adjusting the slider of each of the colours there in the saturation tab, and then also you can experiment with adjusting the sliders in the hue tab as well. But bear in mind, when you're adjusting the hue, you're actually changing those colours, so you're sort of deviating more and more from Hubble palette when you do that, but you know, it's your image and do what you want to it. But I like to get a good balance between the different colours and not make it look too gaudy. But it's everyone's personal taste. Maybe this is already too gaudy, I'm not too sure. So there's a quick and dirty version of the Hubble palette image of the Elephant's Trunk Nebula. Hope you enjoyed that. Until next time, clear skies. I'll see you again.